I love racing games. And guess what? I don't own a steering wheel, nor do I know how to actually drive. This statement already is gonna make a lot of people click off this video, cause the market nowadays is mostly dominated by either casual racing games or really hardcore simulators. Elitism. One of my very first video games I ever played was Need for Speed 2 Special Edition for PC. That game is so nostalgic for me that I've been trying to find the right spot to put the music of this game in a video. So as long as the copyright strike don't see me the same way Nintendo executives saw people were actually buying cardboards to play with them, don't worry, I also forgot this was a thing. I'm gonna put it in this video. Need for Speed 2, apart from the obvious, this looks so real to me back in the day. I just really like how the tracks look. It had a lot of biomes that I never really saw before or than in Microsoft Encarta. But I do remember that since I was so young to know what the concept of save data was, or if this game even had that in first place, since I can boot it up now in my current PC, I always used to pick the first map that had the icon of the kangaroo on it, cause I always like kangaroos. But funny enough, I don't remember seeing any of those in this game now I think about it. Electronic Arts disappointed me since I was a kid. That's the biggest foreshadowing I ever look in my life, I can't lie. Anyhow, this was my first racing game I ever played, and on the same period of time I also played a lot of Colin McRae, Rally 98 I assume, and honestly I believe I played this even more than Need for Speed, but I have it less present on my memory. I guess it's because the monotone backgrounds didn't really stick with me much. However, I do remember that I find it very soothing racing in my own time with a voice that will tell you how to take the next curve. And my English was practically non-existent back then, but at least I understood what left and right was, thanks to the guy that was talking and the image of the signs that were appearing. Later on, Crash Team Racing was for me what Mario Kart was for a lot of people. I didn't even feel like I was missing out on not being able to play Mario Kart often thanks to this game. Granted, I didn't understand much the concepts of genres till later on, and for sure I didn't care if a game was a copy of another one or not. I just remember two things. The obvious one, I was just a huge fan of Crash Bandicoot games already, so being able to play the other characters that honestly look way cooler than Crash in the first place was a joy. But the second one, playing this game with my dad and friends, was always so much fun, especially when I discovered the drift mechanic. And when I realized I could jump out of the video to leave a like and subscribe to this channel, that was peak gaming. I'm sorry. I remember maps being great too, but I can't detail them properly cause they just appear on my mind, images of them, like a snow map, a Mayan temple, a beach with a cave inside, and a tunnel underwater. What I do remember well though is the single player co-op lobbies. Those were quite unique back then, or at least for me, was the first time that I saw anything like that in a racing game. Chocobo Racing is technically my first Final Fantasy game I ever played, and I remember being a pretty and unique game considering games were transitioning into 3D a lot. It was nice to see a game still using 2D images with their characters still. That, and I learned the concept of the elements in English thanks to this game, funny enough. You know, blizzard, water, fire, etc. Then is when we move out to the era of the PS2, where the trend of street racing started, and this applied to other games that were not really related to racing. I believe that's what people call Y2K nowadays, I'm not so sure about it. From that era, I love Need for Speed Carbon and Most Wanted. These games had a lot of I could ask and more, but what really sold me was not just how fast these games were, was also how much you could customize your car the way you wanted. As a kid, I liked dinosaurs, and that fascination evolved to dragons later on, so when I was a teen, my decals were dragon related, or what it was cool back in the day, tribal tattoos. I remember very clearly playing for the longest time around 2006, and I have to admit that when I was a kid, this game was very hard for no reason other than my attention span that wouldn't really read the objectives that I had to impress the girl in the car. I mean, I can't blame myself for not knowing English eventually back then, but I knew how to read images that were showing on the screen. I was just silly and I didn't pay attention, I guess. At this point, my love for speed in video games was playing other genres, and by the time I moved out to play on PC exclusively, things started to feel different, but not really in a bad way. I had no longer games like Crash Team Racing to play, but that fascination of card games moved to Sonic and Sega All-Star Racing Transform. I had a returnal of rally games with Colin McRae Dirt Rallies series that mixed both gritty aesthetic, and that was sorta similar of street racing, but built with different biomes. And I tempted myself to try more games oriented in circuits like Formula 1 2014. Burnout Paradise is one of my favorite racing games of all time, and it came at the right moment when I was discovering Guns N' Roses through a friend that I used to have back then. Need for Speed was losing its fanbase at this time, but I was far from being bored with those games. Games that were hated by the fanbase and still are to some extent nowadays, like Most Wanted, the second one, Need for Speed The Run, and Hot Pursuit, the second one, were games that I loved back then, and I can enjoy playing them again nowadays. Seemed like racing games were just getting better and with more variety. I was even enjoying racing games in the arcade like Hydro Thunder, and the feeling of speed with Crazy Taxi was also there as well. Daytona USA was a big classic for me too, but at some point I started to lose interest in these new releases. And I don't know when this started to happen actually. Some people claim nowadays that the sensation of speed in this game feel lackluster. Others that they just became more pay to win, but personally I never really engaged with online racing games except for maybe that weird Need for Speed World MMO. I didn't play it for long either, so I would assume my interest just changed for a couple of years, probably 10 if I start to think about it. I'm getting old. And now what racing games do I even like? Well, it's funny because the games that I enjoyed the most last few years involved cars but weren't really racing games per se. Euro Truck Simulator 2 being one of those chill games that I like to play once in a blue, since it's one of those games that do require you to have a steering wheel for maximum immersion. There are a ton of games that I could think of that really involve a car, but probably don't even involve driving the car per se. But nothing really ignited my passion other than playing Ridge Racer 7. This game is for the PlayStation 3 era, and I never really got to play it back then. I barely even knew this franchise was a thing, other than just the girl on the picture of some magazines that I used to read back in the day when I was a kid. It was video game magazines, but I can like reviewing this sounded like way suspicious. It was not the things you're thinking, don't worry. But what even is this game about? This game just exudes retro energy to its core, in which is funny because I had to look out when this game released, and this game seems released on 2006, which was the same time that I was playing Outrun, but it looks like 100 times better. I don't know, I guess the concept of releasing games for PS2 and then PS3 at the same time just still blows my mind to this day, because by the time I was playing PS2, a lot of people were playing PS3, and playing God of War 3, I guess. I don't know. But you know which game reminds me of the most? Need for Speed 2. Yeah, the very first one that I talk about in this video. It feels like it's a step up on that formula, just with prettier graphics that even today it still holds up pretty well, I feel. And as for the gameplay, it's just simple and arcadey in a similar way to the kart games that I used to play, but the only power up is just the nitro, and it charges the more as long as you do perfect drifts. At the same time, it didn't have licensed cars, but they felt real. It also had simple customization for your cars in the single player mode, in which I can lie, the default car just having the decal of the Pac-Man. I don't know, it felt kinda nice. And I'm not even a huge Pac-Man fan. It just felt nice having something related to video games in my car, you know? I can't say I remember all the name of the circuits, but I enjoy all the ones that I played. And there are a lot. This game, it has this charm that I'm passionate about that remind me a lot of Need for Speed 2, in which the circuits feel street, but you know they are still circuits. It's not really like illegal races. And if you have been paying attention to this entire video, you might know already that the music of these games really sell me out. It's just the type of music that I would hear on my own. And I gotta admit, I didn't grow up playing Ridge Racer at all, but I even feel nostalgia when I'm hearing Ridge Racer Type 4 music from the PlayStation 1. I'm not even sure why this series stopped at some point, and I wish they could make more racing games like this too nowadays. I like a lot of types of racing games to this point, as you might notice in this video, but sometimes nowadays when I try some new racing game, I just feel like if I play with controller, it's either extremely easy or extremely hard since I don't have a steering wheel. And at least for me, Ridge Racer has been that middle ground that I have been looking for, and I don't care how old this game is. It's weird to say this, but I find comfort with speed, and some of the games that I mentioned have a cozy vibe that not even Stardew Valley can replicate. Nostalgia is so personal and weird, yes. Anyhow, I hope you all like this video, and will help me a lot if you subscribe, leave a like, and share it to someone else that would also like video games or just feel relatable with the stories that I talk about in this video. I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.